this world and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Watching old TV shows and movies is an experience.
Yeah. But you're back. You made it back.
I tripped my Wi-Fi, and then it just went haywire. I was like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, you were frozen like in a looking position for a while.
Yeah, Ameera was like, oh, I'm like, what's happening? But now I'm back. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm on the other side of the world. I'm in the United Kingdom in London. Also just quarantining, lockdown, trying to keep head above water and do the best that we can and stay safe, all that stuff. Yeah. Yeah. I've been connected with a bunch of different universities and drama schools here in the UK. And obviously because they have a bit of a duty to their students to continue on and get them graduated and stuff. I've been able to do some work through them and teaching some courses at different drama universities, directing shows. Yeah, it's been great. Teaching's been really interesting. And I've been teaching like a process of devising, the same one that we basically used on The Fall, and how to make work from yourself and from your own experiences, particularly like working towards devising a text, as opposed to devising like movement or song or something like that. So yeah, that's what I've been up to.
I'm in Johannesburg, so I moved from Cape Town, went to Joburg to go pursue some producing and company business wise. So my career has taken a very businessy kind of route in the creative art sector. And yeah, so a friend of mine really threw me a pass ball last year when he created a show called Confessions, which really allowed me to test my business model. So we do marketing, we do graphic designing, and so we really helped him with these shows. So that also gave me a bit of experience into how to market productions, theater productions, and how to find sponsors, how to fundraise.
Yeah, for a long time during, so when the initial sort of reigniting, I'll put it that way, of Black Lives Matter was happening in the States and in the UK, I was actually in the countryside. I was in the middle of nowhere. There's like the kind of town where there's one train station and there's a train every 3 hours, like in the heart of quarantine. So I, funnily enough, felt very unsafe about going to protests and being around people. But the people that I know who did go were sort of like really, really proud of the fact that everybody at the protests were wearing masks. Everybody was trying to social distance wherever that was possible. Everyone was constantly like hand sanitizing and like wiping down their hands with like wet wipes. And people were being genuinely like very community orientated at that point, until of course, we have the police who come in and then kettle you all together and try to create this like mass of people. We know what that's like. I mean, Bila and I know what that's like. And I mean, I saw on the news that I think it was just yesterday, there was like a mass kettling in DC by the police. So the whole world now knows what all this is like. So it's been really interesting for me as somebody who was very active and very much like on the streets and was physically there, tried to always be physically there wherever I felt safe to do so, to be sort of on the back foot now and be sort of the social media person who's like sending people links and tweeting things. Because that was not my thing when we were marching. I was the one who was like, I had the head wrap and the face mask on, and I was there. Like, I was there.
You're like, we know goggles. Don't worry, guys. Here
I was there. So it's very strange to be in a completely different role, and obviously every role is important when it comes to like changing the world and changing conservatism into sort of a more open, liberal way of viewing the world. But yeah, it's been weird not being boot
in the front line. Yeah. Joburg was lit. I won't lie to you. Like the first 3 weeks, like people were really locked down. you know, and with the George Floyd happenings and the murder, we actually had police brutality this side, especially in the townships, you know, because there it's not very much documented. There were a couple of people who died, who were shot by police. This one guy legitimately just went to go get his essentials, you know, groceries and that, and they shot him. And another one was in his house, and they were drinking. So they banned alcohol and cigarettes in South Africa. But then this guy was drinking with his friends, and they shot those two guys. They still haven't been arrested or no disciplinary hearing for them. So I was quite terrified to even go out with my brother to go get essentials, because you know, you were like, oh my God, what the hell? There's army trucks, you know, there's cops. Some are not even wearing uniform. When my brother and I once went out, they weren't even wearing uniform. They just were like, where are your permits? I was so terrified. I was like, homie, please don't do that to me. You know, like, it was so bad. And like Ameera saying, 2016, 17, you know, we were legitimately staring down cops, you know, but then at this time I'm like, oh my God, there's nothing that could, you know, there's no body cam, like in South Africa, no body cams, no surveillance, no help whatsoever from other police on the route, you know, so it was quite terrifying. And then fourth week, Joburg, people were like, man, what's COVID-19? So the malls started. The people were out.
They were just done.
They were just done. They were like, no, because a lot of people were, you know, were starving at that time. Like a lot of people in the townships, that there's no way to get money. Yeah. The government is promising relief funding that is like legitimately not coming. Even to this day, you know, they promised to give South Africans 350 as a relief stipend. I don't know, how much is that in dollars? It's nothing.
It's like,
I think it's like $20.
It's like $4, like $30 or something like that. Something like that.
You know, it's so min. So people really went and were like, if we have to stay home, we either gonna die from COVID or we're gonna die from starvation. Right. And they were like, we'd rather challenge COVID-19. You know, right now, I swear we're not even on lockdown. Like Joburg is not on lockdown. Yeah. Stores are full, street markets are open, you know, some people aren't even wearing their masks anymore. There's a million graves that have been dug. It's so ridiculous. It is so ridiculous what's happening in Joburg right now. And yeah, it's a very weird time to be.
I mean, it's very similar to the UK. It sounds like it's quite similar to the UK because, I mean, here, a lot of the government guidance that we've been given is like, okay, you can't go out and see family members in their houses, but the pubs are open. You can go to the pub.
And inside, you can go inside?
Away from people. So you can go inside the pub. You have to wear your mask, except when you're eating and drinking, because then you can take your mask off, because obviously it doesn't make sense. This is like the government's rationale. And I remember it was Eid a few days ago, and the government basically banned people from visiting their families during Eid, where it was like the night before Eid, they banned visiting your families. So it was like this whole thing where it's, you know, Muslim people couldn't go to their families' houses, but if they wanted to go to a restaurant or a pub, they could go and meet up with their family there. So it's just like, it's so confusing. And it's been so like heartbreaking as well to see how negatively like of color communities and Black communities are affected by it, and like working class communities compared to like affluent white communities. Because like those stories of police brutality in South Africa are not happening in the suburbs in South Africa. And like the same thing's happening here in the UK, where people are being stopped and searched. Black people are being stopped and searched just for riding their bikes and like driving. One of the British members of Parliament got pulled over because she was driving through a part of the city that her car was not licensed to. It's so weird the way that the police have sort of become like very, very extra aggressive forces now.
Yeah, it's very unequal. Yeah, and just to jump in there, like, you know, when the president announced that public schools, government schools would be closed for. So they're closed now. They closed on the 4th of August, around the 4th of August, and closed indefinitely. But then the private schools were still allowed to go on. So now that raises the question of, now next year, who will be eligible to go to university? How many people are going to be able to get into that tertiary space to get education? So now Black kids and kids in the government schools are really going to be on the back foot going on. Are they going to repeat a year? Are they going to, what are they going to, are they going to consolidate their marks? And then you have like just a load of kids going into that space really unprepared. So there's a lot of inequality that COVID-19 is showing, not only financially, but also in the schooling systems, in the transport market. Like it's really tough to even see and be in South Africa sometimes, because you're like, what the hell is going on, man? What are you guys doing?
I definitely think that because of COVID-19, because we're all in lockdown, that things get amplified very greatly. So you've got a lot more time on your hands to think about things and research things and understand things. So I think that like these kinds of conversations, like decolonization, police, defunding the police, like all of these things are far more accessible to people now, because they have potentially the time on their hands to go and find these things out, and they maybe have more access to people who know a bit about that kind of stuff. Like I've been spending a lot of time on social media, and the conversations on social media have evolved so much since 2015, when we were talking about decolonizing in South Africa. And it's the same thing here. In Bristol, a statue of an imperialist was taken down by the people. So these conversations are happening again. Rhodes is going to be taken down at Oxford, finally.
That's
Rhodes
huge.
Oxford has finally gotten their way after 5 years. So it's like, these conversations are gonna be important constantly, and it's just a matter of like the young generation or the younger generation finding these things out in new ways and in ways that are accessible to them. Like I downloaded TikTok because firstly, ironically, and then secondly, I got very involved in it and I love it now. But a lot of the things that pop up on my feed are like people talking about decolonization, talking about imperialism, and talking about like colonialism and what that meant and what the actual history is that we don't get taught. Because The Fall is not only a piece about that moment in time for us, it's also a piece about revolution, and it's about how do you ignite people, how do you get people to join a movement, the conversations that are had behind closed doors. That's what The Fall is also really about. And so every time there's more protests, The Fall is going to become relevant again, and people are going to think, oh, this is what's happening, this is again the thing that we're talking about. Until the police don't exist, police will always be a problem. Until these statues are taken down, these conversations will always happen. So I think if Trump actually wants to save himself some drama in the long term, he should just take them all down now. Then we'll never talk about it again. Just take them all down, stay here in 10 years, The end of 2015, beginning of 2016, we were no longer students. So for us, going to a protest on university property meant something different. And I think about it now for me as well, being an immigrant, going to a protest where I know there's going to be police, it means something completely different to me as an immigrant now than it did for me in South Africa, where I had a safety net that was my family and my friends.
Our biggest province, the Northern Cape, there's legitimately no theater whatsoever. There's no art whatsoever, art development that is happening there. Northwest, Limpopo. So we're looking at those provinces to be like, how can we actually be of impact, and how can I use the Fall? How can I use the knowledge I got from the Fall to actually help people? Because I learned a lot from the Fall, especially the relationship of male, female, queer, gendered, trans, and there's a lot of that happening right now where people are not even trying to engage in that conversation.
I've kind of, I don't want to say regressed, but I've almost feel like I've become a teenager again. Because for a while I was living with my partner's family, and it's like a house full of people. It's a family. So it was like being young again in a weird way, having a curfew to go home to, and playing video games all day when I had time off, and sitting out in the garden with them, and like being like young again in a way, which has been really, really fun and useful to me, because I don't know if Bila will agree with me, but when you go through something like being part of a social justice movement, and get policemen, blah, 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 all that, it ages you on the inside in a very, very big way. So it's been nice to sort of just relax for a little bit, and have somebody cook some meals for me, and get to sit outside and watch TV and listen to music and eat. That's been really, really good. And I've sort of discovered different things that I love doing that are not theater in a way. I've taken a break from theater, like visually. I watched one national theater thing at the beginning of quarantine, and it was A Man and Two Governors, which is like a farce. And after that, I was like, I'm done. I'm fine. I've had enough theater. That's fine.
Right.
So I've been watching TV again and watching movies, and I watched Firefly for the first time, and I love it. I'm so upset there's only yeah, and I've been painting with watercolors, things that I never thought that I would ever be good at. And yeah, it's just sort of like rediscovering things that I didn't know about myself, because theater was my life for a really long time, and then activism was my life for a while. And now that there's almost no theater happening, and now that it's like slightly more unsafe for me to go out and be an activist physically, I can find other things that I like and that I didn't know that I would like, which has been cool. Yeah.
I'm really working on my spiritual growth right now, so I'm really on God, and I'm reading up a lot, and I stopped going to church and I found out that I'm the church, so that's really giving me a lot of power right now, a lot of hope. The future is also giving me a lot of hope right now, post COVID-19. I'm drawing a lot of hope from the business that we really doing and we starting. I'm reading up a lot on entrepreneurship, on taxes. I'm reading up on I know, right? Like I have to do my taxes.
I love that. I love
now.
that you're upskilling yourself like in a real way, and I'm like, I'm baking. I just want to paint. I want to figure paint.
So that's what I'm really growing from the people around me as well. I got a mentor who's really pushing me in the right way, in the right direction. So that's really making me happy, and the contribution we've been able to give to people.
Feel free.
I want to say to Mr. David Cross that he must call us up. Mr. David Cross, call us up. Call us up. If you're watching it, call us up. Like right now, I know Ameera's creating, we creating, we've really went independent as well, so there's more shows, there's more work, there's more, contribution and impact that we can do. And right now, with the world just being so small, the world is legitimately this tiny.
Right.
Like look at us right now. We talking. So yeah, call us up, Mr. David Cross. Let's do some DC, baby. That's all I want to say.
Yeah. I just want to say Bila summed that up, but also to the people in DC, like who are on the streets, like just keep pushing forward. It's tough, but we're the people who are going to shape the world to come. And if we're shaping it the right way, then it's going to be better than the last one. And and big ups to the Studio Theatre for like having these kinds of conversations, and also for opening your doors to protesters. So few places are willing to take that risk and willing to be a sanctuary for people. And I think the arts and spaces of artistry are the perfect places for that. So snaps to y'all for opening your doors to people.
Yeah.